Let's shoot bullets at each other in an anime style.
We've been playing Bullet Heart by Level 99 Games, and here's 5 reasons why you might enjoy it.
ボックスとミープルがブレッドハートを遊びしましょう。
Hi, I'm Libby and this is Julian. We are BoxedMeeples. You can find us right here on YouTube, and we also have Instagram and Twitter where you can follow us too.
Now, a little while ago we were contacted by Level 99 Games who saw a video we once did on board games that video game players might like. Now, you may not know, but in a former life before playing all of these board games, I used to play a lot of video games.
You even wrote about them in books and blogs and all sorts of things. You know way more about video games than I do.
Well, as somewhat of a video game expert, or be a lapsed one, I felt ideally placed to cast an eye on Bullet Heart, which is a game, after all, based on bullet hell shooters. If you don't know what those are, have a watch and we'll give you a bit overview of what the game involves.
Bullet Heart is a fast-paced puzzle game for 1 to 4 players that plays in less than 20 minutes. It's a board game inspired by vertical scrolling shoot-'em-up video games. Arcade games that are often described as bullet hell because you're dodging all the bullets flung at you by the enemies, which is about as easy as dodging raindrops in a storm. While video game arcades have largely vanished in the West, in Japan they remain prevalent, which certainly explains the wonderful anime style aesthetic that Bullet Heart has. To play the game you pick a heroine and each have their own unique abilities and cards. As you play you'll be firing at bullets that quickly fill up your playing area, which is known as your sight. Each round of battle lasts 3 minutes and the game is played simultaneously. In every turn, you need to remove all bullets in your bag to go to the next round. Each bullet drawn has a colour and a number. The colour lets you know which column it needs to be placed in, and the number tells you how many spaces down the bullet will need to go. You can't have 2 bullets on one space, so if the space you're instructed to place the bullet is taken, you need to move it to a space below. If this forces the bullet off the bottom of your play area, you're going to lose health, and if you lose all your hearts, you're out of the game. So to avoid death you have limited action points that you can spend to perform abilities on randomly drawn cards that are unique to your chosen heroine. Typically player abilities allow you to place bullets in a specific way. This is something you want to do because the pattern cards allow you to remove specific bullet formations from the board. Remove bullets will be forced on your opponent in the next round, but any they remove you'll have to deal with in the future too. To make things trickier, the longer the game goes on, the more additional bullets will be placed into your draw bag with any bullets your opponents removed in the previous turn. So clearing your entire sight is essential if you want to survive in this exciting game. Alongside this free-for-all mode, there are other ways to play to cater for different player counts and abilities. Team mode is good for newer or younger players. Score attack is for solo players. Finally, there's boss battle mode, which is played in a co-op style and can be played by a group or a lone warrior. In this campaign style mode, you'll battle increasingly difficult opponents in an attempt to get the high score.
So we've been having great fun playing and learning Bullet Heart, but what are the 5 reasons that we think that you might enjoy this game too? So our first reason why you might like this game is to do with the art and the style. If you're into that sort of Japanese anime, manga style, if you like things like Sailor Moon, you've got that very similar art style going on here, and I think it's done really well.
Yeah, I mean it's based on bullet hell shooters, you can see that in the game. But realistically, when you're dueling against particularly one other opponent, it feels almost like a one-on-one fighter, like Street Fighter Alpha or Blaze Blue or Skullgirls or Darkstalkers. It has that kind of anime style of those kind of games, and it's clearly been based on those. Each of the characters has their own kind of background story, and all of those, again, seem inspired by those kind of one-on-one fighters. And if you like the characters, of course, there's the soundtracks you can play with them.
Oh yeah, I love the idea of playing with the soundtrack. Now, they're all available, I think, on YouTube for you to listen to, and each soundtrack is 3 minutes, so it's that if you want to use the timer in some of the modes of the game, then you can use each character's timer as as a timer and a soundtrack, which I thought was really clever and helpful, and it just adds to the mood and the immersion in the game, and also to that feeling of needing to sort of speed through and hurry through your moves, and gives that sort of sense of panic at the same time.
Yeah, I know what you're probably thinking, oh, it's a soundtrack for a board game, but it's done incredibly well. It sounds just like you would do if you're playing it as a video game. It's incredibly well written music that seems really in keeping with both the anime style and this kind of video game aesthetic. And if you are become increasingly a big fan of these bullet games, what you should really do is invest in the official tokens. These are a little bit expensive, but they add a great deal to the game. There's this lovely feeling of tactility as you're drawing out the wooden bullets from the bags, as you're placing them down, throwing them to your opponents when you get rid of them. Don't worry if you can't get hold of these though. You are able to get coin capsules that from Amazon. They're not very expensive, they're sort of £13 to £100, and they work just as well. Having those little kind of plastic tokens in a bag just gives you something to draw out, and in the frenzy of placing them, it's so much easier with, you know, a bit of heavy-duty plastic work on the board.
The same way that we love playing with metal coins, so if you're the kind of player that enjoys those little bit of extras, then this is a little upgrade that you might be looking for.
Worth looking out for, especially when you inevitably become a fan of these games. What's really great about Bullet Heart is it works not only as a two-player kind of dual game, but also really well for groups and also solo as well.
Yeah, I see it quite similar to CGE's Under Falling Skies, where you've kind of got this onslaught of things coming towards you, and it's sort of how long you can survive for, or how you're going to defend against said onslaught of things. You're just trying to stay in the game as long as possible.
When you play it solo, it feels less like a bullet hell shooter, more like just a kind of columns game, where you're trying to puzzle out the most effective way of using your time, your movement allowance, to get rid of as much as you can before you know more are coming. But with groups is when it gets really interesting, because when you're playing with two, you know what you've been passing to your opponent and what's likely going to be coming back to you maybe in the next round. But with groups of maybe up to 4, or even more if you start including some expansions, you don't know what you're going to get, because you're always passing to the person on your left, so the bullets start cycling around the table, and it gets really hard to predict what someone else is doing when they're not just next to you or opposite you, but all around you. It feels like this kind of furious sense of everyone trying to do their own thing and stay alive as possible, but also keeping an eye on what everyone else is doing. It comes as it's really furious and frantic and incredibly fun for many people.
Yeah, and that's quite important. Like when we were playing as a two-player, I kind of knew what I had given you the round before, so I knew potentially the round after that sort of thing might be coming my way. So as I'm putting out my bullets and trying to work out what patterns I can make, I'm kind of thinking, oh, I need to be careful about the yellows or the blues here, because I know the likelihood is they might be coming my way again. Whereas when there's more players, it's a little bit more chaotic and it's harder to sort of keep track of those sorts of things. So you start sort of playing a slightly different game at the different player counts.
Yes, it's great that the game plays so diversely and so differently with different players. It really has some sort of longevity to the game.
So Bullet Heart has quite a lot of different ways in which you can play. The game in its core is very much my success is to your peril. You know, you're handing over your successful things in order for the player to then have to put those in the next round. And that might actually be to their advantage, because the more bullets you have, the more patterns you can complete in an easier way, because sometimes it's hard to get them to be where you want them to be. But effectively, the more bullets you have on your board, the more likely it is that you're going to take a shot and be one step closer to failure at the game.
Yeah, there's a kind of almost risk-reward style. It's easier to hurt your opponent when your board's full, but then if you draw badly and you get the one thing you don't want, then you're getting those hits and you're getting the wounds, and soon your character's going to die. For a game that seems on the surface quite simple and quite easy to explain, there's loads of different approaches you can do to play it. I've seen people deliberately end a round with a very full board, knowing that they've already got their attacks lined up for the next round, so in the next round they can do a really devastating attack and send dozens and dozens of bullets over the opponent to deal with. It's clever how different people approach it differently. You know, some people just want to deal with what's on the board quickly and keep an open, clear head. Others want it as busy as possible. And each of the individual characters play differently too. You can certainly see some are stronger than others. I don't know if they're entirely balanced for play, but then the game does indeed suggest different ones for starting characters, rather than, you know, people who are more seasoned at the game and want to play the more devastating, albeit harder to play characters.
Yeah, I love that variety that you have in the different characters and the different skills that they have. It does make each game feel that little bit different, and actually the patterns that they come with are all individual to them and sort of suited to their characters and what they sort of do. Like you played with a sort of a baseball player type character, and everything was sort of straight lines and things like that.
Just whacking things out of the game.
And mine was to do with sort of origami paper aeroplanes, and everything was at funny angles and odd shapes to do with that sort of paper folding idea. So I really like how that sort of carried into that, and it does mean that some of those characters, to get those sort of lined up is a bit trickier than others, and that means that the game will potentially have a bit more longevity, because as you get more used to it, you can sort of start playing with those trickier characters. Or if you're playing sort of with a family, then some of the younger ones can play the easier characters, and then the older ones can play the slightly trickier ones.
And of course, on the reverse, if every one of these characters is a boss that ties into their character, but it's someone else you can take on when you're playing it.
Yeah, these bosses, you can use them to play in solo play or even to play cooperatively. So you sort of clutch together as a team and you're battling against this boss. The bosses have their own patterns in a similar way that you have your patterns, and you're trying to defeat them using those. And they have shields as well to fight against, which give you the different powers of how many bullets you're going to be taking back each round. And it's really interesting to be able to have those different modes in the game for solo and for cooperative play.
I think it's really brilliant that Level 99 have introduced different boss modes and different characters without kind of bogging it down with really heavy, complicated rules. You're not referring back to the rule book, because everything you need to know how to battle each boss is right there on the cards, and you can get really immersed working from one boss to another, to another, to another, and some are much harder to beat than others.
So one of the great things about this game is how quick you can play. It's about a 15-minute game, and I think that's about accurate. Each round is 3 minutes, obviously, if you choose to play with the timer. You don't have to play with the timer if you don't want to, but that's the suggestion. And you're playing through several rounds, and we would normally finish in around about that 15-minute time.
Yeah.
So I think that's quite accurate. It's really quick to set up. You basically choose your character, get the board, a few cards, and then all your bullets are already in the bag, ready to go anyway, so you're good to go.
Yeah, it's a perfect game for kind of having that quick game, ideally at the end of a games night, for example. If you want a quick frantic finale to your evening, you can play just one round, that'll take you 3 minutes, or you can play, we find you're usually having 3 or 4 rounds before someone starts fouling up. And if you are playing against...
Normally you.
Yeah, after me. The tension gets to me, that music builds up. But if you are playing with lots of people, say, up to 4 at more of the expansions, and someone is knocked out, it's not as if they're going to be sitting around not involved for long, because everyone's playing simultaneously. At worst, they're going to be knocked out for, say, 2 rounds, and they're able to watch the chaos going on for the other boards. They're going to be sitting out for 5 minutes maybe before they're able to get round to a new game, and you're playing maybe as a new character with a new experience. To the table in seconds, whole game can be done in half an hour, back in the box. So if you're playing Bullet Heart and really enjoying it, there's lots of ways you can add to the experience, not least because there's a sequel called Bullet Star that works connectedly to Bullet Heart. The characters you can use from that, you can also use together in Bullet Art.
There's an awful lot in the box there, but if you are then craving for some new, different characters and a new challenge, then Bullet Orange offers you those new characters to play with as well.
And of course you can flip over characters from Bullet Star and Bullet Orange and get new boss fights.
So hopefully those 5 reasons have been helpful to you to see whether Bullet Heart from Level 99 Games is going to be one for you.
And if it is one you're looking for, hopefully you'll be able to find it soon in your friendly local game store. And if you've enjoyed what we're doing, we are BoxedMeeples. You can find us here on YouTube. Please do subscribe if you haven't already, and put in a comment below who your favourite character is in Bullet Heart and if you're looking forward to playing it. Hopefully you'll be able to join us and battle us one day when we meet in person. But I'm not going to go very easy on you.